Hello and welcome to our Wednesday reflection for Holy Week. Our reading today is from John chapter 13, beginning at verse 21, and the setting is the disciples and Jesus together at the upper room. Verse 21. After he had said this, Jesus was troubled in spirit and testified, "I tell you the truth, one of you is going to betray me." His disciples stared at one another, at a loss to know which of them he meant. One of them, the disciple whom Jesus loved, was reclining next to him. Simon Peter motioned to this disciple and said, "Ask him which one he means." Leaning back against Jesus, he asked him, "Lord, who is it?" Jesus answered, "It is the one to whom I give this piece of bread when I have dipped it in the dish." Then, dipping the piece of bread, he gave it to Judas Iscariot, son of Simon. As soon as Judas took the bread, Satan entered into him. "What you're about to do, do it quickly," Jesus told him. But no one at the meal understood why Jesus said this to him. Since Judas had charge of the money, some thought Jesus was telling him to buy what was needed for the feast or give something to the poor. As soon as Judas had taken the bread, he went out, and it was night. When he was gone, Jesus said, "Now is the Son of Man glorified, and God is glorified in him. If God is glorified in him, God will glorify the Son in himself, and will glorify him at once." This is a setting in which there wasn't much opportunity for social distancing. Now, social distancing is not something we want ordinarily, of course. It's important in the present context. But just think of the intimacy here in this setting, how close everybody was. Jesus and his 12 disciples. And we read of one of them in particular who it says that Jesus loved. Now, Jesus loved all his disciples, but he had a particularly close relationship with John. And this is the John who's writing this gospel, so he doesn't mention himself by name. And Peter wanted to know who Jesus was referring to about this betrayal. And so Peter motioned to John for John to ask Jesus. And John leaned physically against Jesus in asking him in this close setting. And into this setting there was the heaviness. Maybe it wasn't apparent to these 11 men, but Judas knew what he was doing, and Jesus knew what Judas was doing. And this was the weight of what was going on at the Last Supper. This was the weight that was upon Jesus in the run-up to his arrest and crucifixion. And in this time, we have many people experience some heavy feelings. When it comes to social distancing, maybe for me, my experience is that I haven't actually touched anybody else for a long time. And, I haven't even shook hands with somebody for a very long time. But for others during this time, things are way too close, because many are living in households together with others where there is real strain on relationships. For some, of course, those are just maybe normal stresses and strains magnified a little more in this setting. But for others, those are really painful circumstances to be living in. And sadly, there are, for many, and too many in our society, abusive relationships within homes. Whatever we're experiencing, whatever we're going through, whatever we are dealing with right now, and I should say that if we are dealing with something that is abusive, we need to ask for help, and we need to look for that help, and there is help out there. But wherever we're at, on the spectrum of maybe isolation, loneliness, maybe others around about us doing our head in a bit, God has already walked this road for us in Jesus Christ. Jesus experienced the heaviness of this betrayal from Judas. And these other 11 disciples, even John that was closest to him, and although we see John again at the cross, even Peter was to deny him. The disciples were going to flee. Jesus experienced this range of feelings, and he experienced loneliness or isolation for us. The isolation of the cross, that we would have life. God knows what we're going through. And wherever we're at today, and wherever we're at this week, let's know that he knows, and leave it all with him. Amen.